that I just don't think it works anymore. Our future next district governor, Matthew. I thought about wearing my butterfly wings to do this next part, but I didn't think it would be appropriate. We have a formal piece of business we have to take care of this morning before we get started. And this piece of business comes from our bylaws. If you would look through, if you have a copy or if you look at them online, Section 3.03 outlines the Finance Committee. And the important part is actually the last one there. And it says that the committee shall prepare and adopt a budget for the next succeeding year, which shall be presented at the District Assembly for approval by 3/4 of the incoming presidents. So we're going to make a quick presentation of our budget here today. In the middle of the table, you'll find a copy that you can reference. And then we're going to call for a vote. Now, I would remind you, the only people that are able to vote today are any of our presidents-elect. So if you will be president during the 15-16 year, we're going to need you to vote today. And Dave, you'll make sure you record some minutes from that. So I'm going to highlight just a few items or a few line items on the budget. The first one that I would call attention to is line number 7, which is total support. And total support includes the dues that we get in from clubs, our pets fees. Each club pays a fee to pay for pets. Also, any of the dues that we pay out automatically. So if there are things that are necessary that we have to pay, like we make a donation to the zone, or we have some dues paid out to RLI, etc. Those all fall into our total support category. The next item is line 9, and line 9 is total investment income. It's not a large item, but we do have a couple bank accounts, and we receive some interest from those, so that's where you'll find that. Line 22 is total revenue, and in our total revenue, it is mostly money from special events, things like our foundation celebration, minus the cost of goods sold, or if there's a direct cost benefit. So if we have a foundation celebration, and which we will be having, that's all of the money that comes in, and in that same line item, just above that, you'll see that there's also some negatives. Those negatives are like food and beverage that go out directly as soon as we bring it in. So we don't count that in the bottom of the budget. Instead, it falls under the total revenue as a negative. Line 23, total support and revenue, is of course our net of support and revenue. Line 46 is total compensation. These are honorariums, expenses for trainings and conferences. So you'll find your district officers on there. Anyone who really has a lot of travel to do within the district or is required by RI to go to any kind of conferences, they receive an honorarium or some expenses for those conferences to be able to serve the district. Line 55 is total committee expenses. So that's any of our committees within the district, like the Finance Committee, or there are several others. These include room rental fees, meals, office supplies, anything it would take to allow that district committee to function. Those different committees are broken down there and then all added up in total committee expenses. Line 77 is the next we'll call attention to, and that's total other expenses. And this is really a catch-all. It shows the expenses for pets, expenses for AG training, our RLI scholarships, the newsletter, postage, printing, and a subsidy to our district conference that comes from our district each year. You'll actually notice that the district conference subsidy, or you may or may not notice, when you do the math, works out a little bit differently, or a little bit less than we've had the past several years. And we are not proposing a dues increase this year, but I do think within the next couple years, we'll be looking at a potential dues increase just because of the increase of operating. Line 78 is total expenses, followed by line 79, which is net increase and our ending balance. And we are projecting that we'll end to the good $780 as budgeted right now. So does anyone have any questions? I would open it up for questions on the budget. Yes, Thaddeus?
The question I have is, when I first looked at this, it's basically from last year to this year, both in income and expense, about a 30% increase. If you look at line 22, I think it's 23, it shows 57,000 and then 75,000 coming. The same thing on line 78, 56 to 74,000.
One of the things that we didn't do previously was track expenses for district conference. Okay, so we considered them an in and out, and we sold tickets or meals, and then we would just pay the hotel. When we put together this budget, we looked at the fact that we have to sell those meals, but we're contractually obligated to them. So because they're an obligation, we thought it was important to add to the budget, because if we don't meet that number that we're projecting to come in, someone has to pay the bill at the end. The same with foundation celebration. Those were items that before we didn't show them on the budget at all. They were just that food and beverage was in and out. So that's where that increase comes from. Ivar.
You mentioned foundation celebration. Is there a reason that not all the surplus that is budgeted for the foundation goes to the foundation?
I think we'll have to look at how that really turns out at the end, but my hope would be that we can send it all there.
I'm going to copy this and pass it to every member at our club. Is there anything that you would want as, not to be able to describe it like you did, but is there anything you want us to bring out as I pass these out to the club members?
No, I don't think particularly. I think it's good for transparency to, you're welcome to go ahead and do that. If they have any questions, we're always happy to answer that. And of course, this is a budget, so it's what we project to spend, not, what we'll actually spend. Right? Stephanie?
Matt, this year our district newsletter is distributed electronically, and I noticed line 60 you have postage for next year. Do you plan to mail it?
Correct. Next year we are doing a quarterly newsletter that is going to be a mailing. So that's something we haven't done in quite some time, but we're also aligning that quarterly printed newsletter with key items that happen in the district. So for example, one will be have a lot to do with foundation celebration, because we normally send a postcard or something like that anyway. Well, now we're doing the whole newsletter that will cover that. Also with district conference, rather than sending out a district conference mailing, there will be that newsletter. But it also gives us a chance to connect with a lot of our members based on some feedback. We're sending out our e-newsletter and also our weekly fireside chat that District Governor Mark does to over 1,100 people right now. But some of those people are people that have left Rotary, and it's great they're still getting it, but we're not connecting with every Rotarian. So some feedback we got is that there are still people that don't check their email often or would like something in paper, and we're going to try to do that. You'll also notice that as part of that project, we're offsetting the cost with some flyers that you can put in there. So that's a great, real quick commercial for me. If you have a club event that you want to share with all 1,200 members of the district, say you have a night at the races, and you get us a flyer for a very nominal cost, and I believe it's $100 or something like that. For a nominal cost, we will insert that into the printed newsletter. So as long as we get it in advance, and the president-elects in your packet at PETS receive the information about purchasing those, we'll also be posting all of that information to the website very soon, so that you can take advantage of sharing with the rest of your district your events. Yes, Lane?
You had talked about helping with the cost of RILA. Is that happening?
The cost of RILA is going to be helped, but it's going to be helped from a grant. And George, do you want to, so it doesn't show on the budget because it's a,
It is now, that just looks like
yeah.
standard.
Yeah, it's just a standard amount, but there will be some subsidy from the grants. And George, you would know more about that. $2,000 is the amount that they'll be subsidizing this year. Okay, if there are, oh, Sharon, is that you back there?
Yes, not particularly about the budget, you're just thinking in the future. When we're talking about a dues increase, do you have any idea what we should be preparing the membership for in that?
You know, that's something that I think, if it happens, we'll start talking about that in advance, probably in about November. That's when the Finance Committee meets for next year for the first time. I would speculate it would not be more than $2. So that would be where it would be for the next year, I would imagine. Okay, if there are no further questions, I do need a motion from a president-elect to approve the budget as submitted from the Finance Committee. Thank you, Miguel. And a second? Thank you, Sharon. And President-elect, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and the motion carries. And since we've come to the conclusion of our business meeting, I will call for a second motion to adjourn our business meeting. So do I have a motion from a president-elect to adjourn? Thaddeus and Paula. Okay, thank you very much. We will move on from the budget. So that was the most formal thing we had to do today, and hopefully it served as a little bit of a piece of education as well, and it helps us to just share with all of you and with our clubs what we're doing financially within the district.